This game was the game that everyone played growing up. It was literally the #1 game on Cartoon Network's website for the longest time, and everyone was playing it. The gameplay? Great. The characters? It's on some Marvel levels. The online? Well, it was better than Street Fighter V's rollback. More like rollback to Street Fighter 4. Oh, but it was still a blast to play every day after school. With parents' permission, of course. Now, this game no longer exists. It was only online, and those servers are far shut down. The only trace of this game you can find on the internet are like clips from 13 years ago, and it's some soulless body ghoul playing the game, and basically every video looks like this. So yeah, this game is way dead and gone, but hopefully this video reaches some people who used to play, or I show this game to a few people in the FGC who are curious about what this was. So let's get right into it. Development for this game started roughly around 2009, and the protagonist here is Jeremy Van Hooser. Jeremy worked at, this is a lot, but Cartoon Network Digital Media Games Studio, and he was the art director there, so that meant that he worked on a ton of games for the website, and he also created the overall design for a lot of them. So he and a group of a few other people were told something unique this time. So usually they work on games where it's like, okay, this is going to be a chowder game, or this is going to be a flapjack game, but this time they were told to make a game using the hot boys of Cartoon Network. No, not these hot boys, not these hot boys. We're gonna act like we've never heard of them. We're talking about these hot boys. You know, the Generator X's, the Ben 10s, the Chowders. So this was gonna be some sort of like crossover game, which was something new at the time. Jeremy loved to draw robots, and I mean absolutely loved to draw robots. He has an entire blog dedicated to drawing robots, so he wanted a game that had something to do with robots. So he and his team sat down and they decided, yeah, let's make a game, and also, just for the heck of it, let's just make it online as well. Now, I don't know why the game is online, but that was just mind-blowing to me. Usually games like this, they just don't care about making it online, but I really appreciate the fact that they made it online. Now, it kind of sucks that there's no training mode or no local, like, play mode or anything, but the fact that it was online was just crazy, especially for 2009. So now that they have the idea, development officially begins. So they start making the game, and then everything suddenly stops. Given a task to make a simple little game for the website, of course they would have a limited budget and a time frame to complete it, and that's where they came across their first issue. So if this is a fighting game, how would we have the time to create individual hitboxes for a ton of characters when the characters are all different sizes and they're nowhere near close to each other? Like, we have characters as huge as Ben 10 monsters, and then we got tiny little characters like this. Like, how is that gonna work? This is a hitbox. In fighting games, you don't actually hit each other, but you hit an invisible box on their body. Every fighting game has hitboxes, and they usually represent the character accurately. Unless, again, you're a Street Fighter 5. And then there's another issue. So, like, if this is a fighting game, we don't want to see a huge dinosaur just completely decking a small guy in their face. Like that's gonna scare your children and give them nightmares. You don't want to see these Cartoon Network characters going full power on each other. Like, that's some like Adult Swim type stuff. You can't be doing that. But here's how the problem got solved. So you know how the game was called Super Huge Awesome Robot Fighters, right? So they just rolled with that and they made everyone a robot. This solves the hitbox issue because everyone has the same exact size. And the thought of robots fighting each other tends to be a lot better of an option than your beloved characters actually hurting each other. So our protagonist, Jeremy, drew this picture and showed it to everyone in the office. Everyone just agreed that, yeah, this is the perfect idea, let's go ahead and do it. Renamed to TKO Titanic Kung Fu Bot Offensive. Now, it's kind of weird because that's kind of like PlayerUnknown's Battleground situation, to where it's called PUBG Battlegrounds, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. But let's not think about that. So at this point, the game is ready to go into actual development since the idea is finalized, because now they know what they want to do. But guess what now? There's another problem, which is how could they create all of the animation for this game? So Jeremy knew someone in the studio named Maria, who was a contract artist that studied computer animation in school. The team wanted 3D graphics, but Noel, the animator, only knew how to draw and animate things in 2D. So they went to Maria because she knew how to do 3D stuff in Maya. So Jeremy created a quick sketch and handed this to Maria. And Maria took up the challenge to recreate everything in 3D. Maria later came back and said that she would help, but instead she's going to use the program Blender because Maya wasn't actually used in the studio. She didn't actually know how to use Blender, so most of the work was self-taught as she was just working on the model. And she came back with this. She then used a technique called pre-rendering, which is when you turn something 3D into something 2D. It's kind of like just taking a picture of it and putting it into the 2D game, but it still looks 3D. You've probably seen it several times, but if you look at it, you can tell it's not really 3D, but it's still pretty cool. With Noel being the 2D animator on the team, he sketched up all the moves in his 2D style and then gave the sketches to Maria as a reference to what the team wanted. A lot of older games like Killer Instinct or even Donkey Kong had to use this technique due to limitations at the time. Now, since Noel was the 2D animator on the team, he would just sketch move lists and move ideas, and he would give it to Maria, and then Maria would animate the moves. Maria worked on delivering the 3D animations to the programmers, and Jeremy did his job as a designer by designing things like this. So Maria would take these skins and she would put them onto the gray robot, turning it into the actual Cartoon Network character that we know. And lastly, there was Brad, the programmer. I saved his introduction for last because here's the kicker. The reason why the game flowed like a real fighting game and had real mechanics to back it up was because of him. He knew how fast every move should recover, he knew how every move should hit, and most importantly, why every move even existed. How did he know all that? Well, I'll make it simple. Brad was part of the FGC, which leads me to think that he was the mastermind behind the game that took over Cartoon Network.
Cookies now!
Yes, ma'am.
The game launched on August 17th, 2009 with 6 fighters. So, fun fact, the game actually started off as Ben 10 versus the Secret Saturdays, which, it kind of reminds me of the whole Marvel vs. Capcom situation. Before Marvel vs. Capcom existed, it was X-Men vs. Street Fighter and things like that. Precisely 2 weeks after release, they added Duncan to the roster, and every week or so after that, they would add in another fighter until they got all the way up near 30. Also, you only had the option to play against random people online till someone commented on Jeremy's blog suggesting that private matches should exist. So he was actually listening to the fans of the game and putting things in. And since they were so fast to update the game, they could literally do things like one time Generator X premiered for the first time on Cartoon Network in 2009, and they turned around and put him in the game the next week. Like, that's just crazy. They were on a roll, and that's most likely why the game got so popular. They were so consistent and they worked so hard on the game. There is still a small amount of gameplay that gets posted around on YouTube too. I know even on my channel I had a video back in 2016 where I played the game too. There's even a small community that still remember the game, and they just go around on old YouTube videos and they just talk about the game. Or anytime somebody uploads a new video about the game, people will just hop into the comment section and it's the same people, you just see them in video after video after video. And you're like, hey, I remember this guy, he's commented on every single one in the past year. So yeah, I thought I would revisit the game and give it a very solid piece of content for those looking to pick up whatever they can find. Because there's not really a lot of coverage for the game, let alone somebody actually talking about the game. But Jeremy had another project up his sleeve. On March 3rd of 2010, he revealed that he was working on another game called Project Exonaut. I'll save that video for another day, but those who remember, all I gotta say is, oh my god, Mordecai and Rigby, they just wrecked in that game. I haven't really followed and kept up to date with too much of what Jeremy's been doing, but back when I wrote the script for this video 3 years ago, he was working on the new Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare game.
Survival of the fittest. Species better adapted to their environment live on, while others perish. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare.